Hello, Dr. Donna.
Hello, Laura.
So we are live in Facebook. We're in Zoom, we're in Facebook, and we're a little early, which is fantastic for two ADHD brains to be early.
Well, it's I'm either early or I'm late. I mean, those are my two votes.
So we'll give people some time to hop on, and everybody, while you're joining, just let us know that you're here. Like, type in a hello in the comments. Let us know where in the world you're coming from. It's always so fascinating to me that we're from all around the world coming together with the same goal in mind to help our children with ADHD thrive. So let us know where you're coming from. I'm just opening up Facebook on my phone so I can see the comments. There we go. Okay. If you're watching on YouTube, because this will be on YouTube as well, go ahead and like and subscribe. And doing that supports the ADHD Village channel. And I really am so thankful and appreciative of your support. And then in the comments, you can even type in I subscribed, and then that will let me know that you subscribed and we can be in touch. Hi, Ruth. Thank you for joining us. We're a little early, which is so fantastic. So yeah, everybody just type in the comments. Let us know where you're coming from in the world. Let us know maybe the ages of your children. There's lots of exciting things going on in the ADHD Village. Today, we're interviewing the author of Imperfect Parenting, Dr. Donna Matthews. And Dr. Donna will do an introduction of you very soon. So yeah, that's exciting. We also have, we did a 5-day challenge a few weeks ago, how not to lose your cool, especially when your kids do. And I've decided to leave that in the group a little bit longer. So you'll have to the end of this weekend. If you haven't watched the whole challenge yet, you'll have till the end of the weekend to do that. Lots of parents are finding there's lots of helpful tips in there. The Warrior Mama program, we've got doors opening up for that program to begin in June for our next group of warrior mamas coming in. Doors close though May 19th. So if you want to become a warrior mama, reach out to me and let me know by May the 19th, because May the 19th, I'm closing the doors and our group will be created. And I like to keep the group nice and small so that everybody gets the attention that they need. And Dr. Matthews joined the ADHD Warrior Mamas just this morning. We had a meeting with the mamas to talk about some things that had come up in the group. So that's a nice thing about being part of the ADHD Warrior Mamas is when you have things that are coming up for you, we create the program around your needs, and then we bring in beautiful experts like Dr. Donna to help us with those special things. If you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and type in #replay. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's watching. You are doing an amazing job. The fact that you're spending your Saturday morning here in the ADHD Village with myself and Dr. Donna shows your commitment to your family and how much that you want to support your child. So thank you. I really appreciate that you're choosing to share this space with us. And I'm just looking on Facebook to see the comments. As you join, just type in a hello. Let us know where you're from. Let us know how many kiddos you have. I see some people watching, but I don't see any comments coming in just yet. That's okay. At the end of our chat with Dr. Donna today, we will be giving away a copy of Imperfect Parenting. And in order to win your copy of the book, you need to stay on the call till the very end, and you'll be sharing with us at the end what was your biggest aha moment, your biggest takeaway from our call today. Or maybe you'll share what your next actionable step will be. So I always like to start my meetings by setting my reticular activating system, priming my brain for learning. So before we begin, just prime your brain and tell your brain that you are going to have a new learning. There's going to be an aha moment. You're going to have an actionable step. at the end of this call today. So set your brain ready for that learning. We'll share your thoughts at the end, and then we'll do a draw for a lucky winner of the book. I'll also share in the comments a link so that you can grab your own copy of Imperfect Parenting. I have to say, when I heard the title of Dr. Donna's newest book, Imperfect Parenting, just hearing the title brought a sense of calm to me, because I feel like I put so much pressure on myself to be a perfect parent, especially because my kids have ADHD, they've got special needs, and especially too because I'm a teacher and I feel like people are watching and judging. So I've always had that extra pressure on myself. If you feel the same, type that in the comments, like, yes, I feel pressured, or yes, I try to be a perfect parent. Let us know if you're feeling the same. And then the subtitle on the book, How to Build a Relationship with Your Child to Weather Any Storm. I just love that, because I do find with ADHD, there are so many storms that happen. And no matter what's going on around you, as long as you have that solid foundation with your child, if you have that connected relationship, you'll be able to get through and everything will be okay. Dr. Donna, can I ask you to introduce yourself and let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Sure, of course. So Donna Matthews is my name. I've been working with families and schools and kids around a number of issues, primarily centered on gifted education, giftedness, and most typically when it's complicated with other things such as ADHD. So the work that I did started off looking at what is the nature of intelligence? How does intelligence develop? What can parents and teachers do to support the development of a child's intelligence? As I got deeper into that, I learned so much more about child development and about the fact that it really does come down at the end to a connection between a parent and a child. And as long as there is a connection, as long as a child feels that loving connection with one other adult, their brain begins to build itself. You begin to get all kinds of exciting things happening in their brain development. So although I started off interested in the nature of intelligence, I moved sort of through the decades of my career to a much broader interest in what can parents and teachers do to support the best development of the children in their lives. So, and sort of the more I worked in this field, the more I came to the conclusion that everything develops. Given enough time, given enough space, given the motivation, social skills, emotional skills, mathematical skills, all the kinds of competencies that people have develop, athletic skills. So I mean, that sounds really simplistic, and it is simple, but sort of a profound consequence of the fact that everything develops is, as a parent, you can be present to the development of every kind of competence that's possible in your child and in yourself too.
So beautiful. And I love that idea of that your brain is always growing and changing. I think sometimes we might feel like it's too late. Like maybe we have teenagers that are, some of the parents had shared they're concerned that their teenagers are swearing all the time, and how to deal with that. And parents might just think, well, it's too late. We've already set into this negative pattern. Why bother trying to change it? Maybe you can explain, Dr. Donna, how neuroplasticity works and how it's never too late.
Yeah, in fact, you're absolutely right. And it is all about neuroplasticity, that everything develops concept. depends on the fact that the brain is always changing in response to its experiences. And I mean, so it's interesting. I'm sort of tempted, it's a bit of a digression, but what to do when your teenager swears? Well, to start with, teenagers swear. I mean, that's typically not everyone, but it's very tough being a teenager. There's all kinds of hormone changes, brain changes. Everything is changing. Obviously, body changes, sexuality. There's a lot going on for every teenager, starting really around the age of 10, but certainly by 11 or 12. The hormones, there's a massive change going on. So it's not unusual for children to be overwhelmed, for teenagers to be overwhelmed by what's going on inside themselves, the changing demands of the world around them, school, parents, everybody. Expectations are changing, and they're realizing that at some point, like, they're responsible for their life, which is very scary. They're moving out of childhood. So the turbulence of adolescence is like a really good example of a time for a parent to be calm, to do their best to find their calm strength, just like with toddlers. When you're dealing with toddler anger, which is 100% normal, you're dealing with that kind of turbulence that you see again in early adolescence, sort of that 11 to 14-year-old period. So as a parent, the best thing you can do is have some coping mechanisms in place of getting yourself calm so you're not adding to the problem. So.
And I love that we need to focus on ourselves first. And what you were sharing that's going on with the teenagers, there's a lot going on for them. So having that compassion for them, that it's not just about that swearing, but what's going on underneath.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, I think one of the things that helps as a parent of a turbulent child, whether toddler, child, adolescent, or adult, one of the things that's important to remember is, I mean, and that's the title of this book, Imperfect Parenting. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to have turbulence. That is what happens. But at the end of the day, it's your relationship with your child that matters most. So I think parents are often distracted by the swearing, for example, the behavior of the moment, and they lose sight of the child, the human underneath that, the child that's doing the swearing. That's some expression of turbulence. The child is experiencing something uncomfortable, and that's why they're behaving in an inappropriate way. So, your job as a parent is to keep yourself calm enough, and that's not always easy. I mean, it means taking care of yourself, developing some good coping mechanisms, having some good emotion regulation techniques for yourself, all of which is easier said than done. But then focusing on keeping your focus on the long-term relationship with your child. This child is a human that you love. And if you can remember that in the heat of the moment, you're going to go a long way towards everything being okay.
I think that is so crucial what you just said there, because, I've noticed myself with my own teenager, when he says the word, my instinct might be like, don't say that, or like, to correct that behavior. But I've been really trying to take a step back, take a deep breath, and think, like, what's most important in this moment? And it always comes down for me, what's most important is that my kids feel loved and that they feel a connected relationship to me. I always remind myself of that. So rather than me going in and trying to correct that behavior, I take a step back and think, okay, what's going on for him? And I often will just say, I love you. Because maybe he's saying the swear because he's not feeling loved in the moment. Maybe something happened and he's feeling really prickly, so what do I want? I want him to feel loved and connected. And I put my energy towards that rather than towards the behavior that I don't want to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Perfect.
Perfectly imperfect.
Let's talk about the word perfect, because there is a lot of pressure. And when we have kids who have special needs, we can be really hard on ourselves. We want to make sure that we're doing the right strategies. We want to make sure we're consequencing in the right way. We want to make sure that we're, teaching them the skills that they need. We want to make sure that we're doing all the things, and we can get really caught up in that. What happens to us as a parent if we're too focused on trying to make things perfect?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a mistake to try and be perfect, because you won't make it. And what happens when we're trying that hard, we're trying to do it just right, we're tempted then to blame somebody, ourselves, partner, child, society, teacher, somebody. We're tempted to blame somebody or something when things go wrong. And because things will go wrong. You try for perfect, you will not achieve that. When you realize that nobody's perfect, not your kid, not you, not your partner, nobody, and just let it be okay. Let it slide a little bit. Be present, be loving. So do be those things. But when you can let it go, then you usually tend to get away from blame. You don't, when things go wrong, your kid swears, you don't say, oh, he's had too much sugar. You don't look for something to blame. And when you get into the blame, that's when things tend to get negative and problematic. So moving away from perfect allows you to look at things more holistically, more acceptingly, more calmly, and to see the moment for what it is. Accept the pluses, accept the minuses.
So I love how you talked about blame. And when we're in that blame, we're in that negative mindset. If you've been in my world for a while, you know that I really like the work of Dr. Daniel Amos, and he talks about ants, the automatic negative thoughts. And the most poisonous thought, a red ant, is that blame. And it can really put us in a really tricky spot to be in. And when we're in that blame, we're very far away from that vibration of love. And we want to be in that vibration of love with our kids. That's how we build the connection in the relationship.
That's right. That's nicely put. I haven't heard that metaphor, but I like it.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you too about the good enough parenting. So at the beginning of your book, you talk about being good enough. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. And good enough comes out of perfect, right? So the sort of history of that good enough idea is pediatricians noticing that parents who tried to be perfect were more brittle and demanding with themselves, their partner, their child. And parents who could relax and just let themselves and others be good enough, not perfect, allow the child to grow into their unique self. So a good enough parent is able to accept the imperfections within themselves, and they're able to see their child as a whole, pluses and minuses, challenges and strengths. They're able to see their partner that way too. So it's a more relaxed environment, which allows the child to flourish. Instead of working to an impossible standard, the child relaxes and is much better able and much more likely to discover their own uniqueness, their own interests, and then develop them. And so to go on to live happily productive lives, which I think is the objective of most parents. We want in the end for our child to make for themselves the life that's best for themselves, which is going to be different than the best life for you.
I love that. And in our previous call, we were talking about, we sometimes put a lot of pressure on ourselves in the morning when we're trying to get out the door. And you said something along the lines, like, in the grand scheme of things, if you are late for work and your child's late for school, it doesn't really matter. But what you want is for your child to develop skills and work towards that goal of being a productive human. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How it's
no, and I remember that conversation that we had, and I mean, what I said was actually more sort of dramatic than what you just said. I said, in the grand scheme of things, if you're late for work, for school, it doesn't matter. If you miss today entirely, that doesn't matter. What really matters is the long term, what your relationship with your child is like, how they feel about themselves, how you feel about yourself. If you can remember that in the flurry of the moment, when it seems so important that they get their shoes on and they get their lunch, and that everything is organized and you're out the door in time, when that seems like the most important thing in the world, try to stop yourself, try to slow it all down and say, hey, if we don't even make it out the door today, that's okay. What matters most, does my child feel loved, nourished, appreciated? And it helps. It makes a big difference if you remember what's most important.
And a good idea, honestly, is to write it out so you can see that in front of you, because often we don't think about what is most important. Like, we think we know it, and it's maybe running around in our brains. But if you can put it out on paper and talk about it with your parenting partner, what is the most important thing? Like, what are the goals for our child? What do we want for our child? We often are so busy in the moment doing the things, packing the lunches, making the dinner, going through the school bags, doing the homework, that we forget about, like, what are the long-term goals? What do we really want for our child? So I invite everybody here to take some time to think about it. And if right now, you can type it in the comments, like, what do you really want for your child? And then once you have that clear goal, and it helps to have it in writing, then you can work on steps to get to that goal. So if you have a chance to type that in the comments, that would be great. And I'll just keep my eye open to see if any comments come in. And also in thinking of working towards that goal of what we really want for our kids, I think it's important to realize too that our parenting can always change. So we may feel that, we've made mistakes or we didn't do it right before, but parenting is a skill that we can develop and grow. And I wonder if you could talk into that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is important. And it sort of comes back to learning to accept yourself just the way you are, learning to take good enough care of yourself that you're able to respond to your child and to their needs. And remember that it is moment by moment by moment that we build a life, that we're always changing, our child is always changing, and there's sort of almost infinite capacity for growth and learning, and sort of the neural plasticity idea that the brain is constantly changing with experience. And it's hard sometimes to forgive yourself for the way you might have been and the mistakes that you've made. But it's so important to move on from that. And there was a Maya Angelou quote that I love, and I'm not going to remember it well. You might know it better than me. But when I did the best I could, and now that I know better,
now that I know better, I do better.
Yeah. And basically that, now that I know better, I do better. And sort of letting that be okay helps. It makes a difference for me in the sort of moving and growing and allowing that to happen. And no matter what's going on, there is always a capacity for change.
I'm just watching the comments coming on, and Jen said her wish for her children is that they grow up to be happy and healthy humans who are kind and respectful to others. So, Jen, if that's your goal, that your children will be happy and healthy and kind and respectful. So I think having that goal in mind when things come up is really important. Like you can even have that on a sticky note all around your house. Like my kids will be happy and healthy and kind, respectful humans. So it's a nice reminder to have for yourself when you're responding to situations. The outcome, the end goal is that they're respectful and kind.
Yeah. And I mean, how beautiful. It's so nicely put. And I mean, when I hear that, I think that's perfect and perfect. Sorry about that. I like it. But it's a wonderful goal to have for your children, but it makes all the daily stressors look awfully insignificant, right? So you're having a battle over, I don't know, have they cleaned their room or something? And like, if that's what you want for your kid, happy, healthy, kind, respectful, well, then every day is movement towards that. And nothing else matters. So how clean their room is doesn't matter. How you treat that, how you handle that, how you work together with your child to create at least a sanitary environment in their room is way more important, because that's about the kind, respectful, etc. It puts into perspective the daily hassles that most of us have.
Yeah. And when we're wanting to focus on this goal and we're wanting to be that calm in the storm when things get bumpy and rough and prickly, I know that you talk about like keeping calm so that you can respond in a calm way. Can you give us some pointers on how to stay calm?
Sure. I mean, it is something I talk a lot about in imperfect parenting, and everybody has their own pathway to calm. Not everybody wants to be calm. I do advocate it as a way of dealing most effectively with children in particular. They respond best in a calm, safe environment where people are being kind to them and people aren't yelling. That works best for children's development. For me, the best thing, because I don't have a calm temperament, I also have ADHD, and I'm sort of all over the place in my natural state. I'm a bit frantic, but I have acquired some really good techniques for keeping myself calm. The best one for me is breathing exercises. That's sort of the mindfulness techniques that use breathing as the foundation. And there's some really simple, effective breathing techniques you can learn. And I've got them in my book, and there are lots of other places. Just Google mindfulness breathing, and you'll find some good ideas for that. I find yoga is really good. So stretching exercises helps me again. It helps me connect to my own body and sort of notice where things are out of kilter. So that's good for me. It works for some people, doesn't for others. It's most essential if you want to stay calm. You need to be paying attention to sleep. Are you getting enough sleep? And most parents are not. So doing what you can to get enough sleep is really good. Nutrition, exercise, spending time in nature is another really important calming technique.
Those are all excellent strategies. And as you are working on yourself and finding ways for to keep your own calm, your children will benefit from that. It will ripple out to them. They feel the energy, and it's not just like a woo-woo thing to say they feel the energy.
They do.
It's scientifically proven. Like your thoughts are electric, your feelings are magnetic. So the energy you put out there, their bodies and brains are picking up.
That's so true. If you take good care of yourself, that will help your children take care of themselves. If you want your kids to be healthy, it does start with you. And a healthy attitude, finding in yourself, like investing enough time and energy into yourself. And again, I think most parents, or a lot of parents, have a really hard time doing that. But your kids need you to take good care of yourself.
Yeah, that's an important thing, because often as busy parents, we think it's almost selfish to take
That's
care of
right.
ourselves, but it's actually essential to take care of yourself, because you
Yeah.
want to have something to give to the kids. And if you're not taking care
Yeah,
of yourself, there's nothing to give.
exactly. That's true.
So drop in the comments, let us know, what do you do for your own self-care? Dr. Donna just suggested some great ideas: that mindfulness, deep breathing, yoga, spending time in nature, exercising, making sure you have, good quality restorative sleep, good nutrition. What do you do to take care of yourself? What is your self-care? So go ahead and drop that in the comments.
Another thing that I've been paying more attention to recently that I think is valuable and worth talking about is the finding tools for creative self-expression. And I think most parents understand that it's important that kids write or paint or get involved in drama, have creative self-expression vehicles. And music is another really good one. But parents need that too. So finding some kind of a vehicle, and again, I know time is everything, but if you can allocate 1 hour a week to doing something you love to do, listening to music, playing an instrument, watching a movie, some kind of, I don't know, creative self-expression. I don't know that movies would fall into that, but doing something where you feel like your creative self is finding an outlet. It helps you be a better parent.
I love that. I was having a conversation with a mom just a few days ago, actually, and she said, if I had more time, I would take an art course. And I said,
Wow.
okay, let's work on that. Let's find a way to make that happen now.
Yep.
Let's, like, what can you do to change things around so you can make that happen now? Because if that's something that really lights you up, if that's something you're passionate about, find a way to do that now, because that's actually going to help you with your parenting. It's going to help with your energy level. It's, it's going to relieve a lot of stress. And, when you're stressed, a lot of your time is spent, maybe buffering your feelings or avoiding your feelings, or maybe you're doing things that, like mindlessly watching TV or.
Yes, that's right.
So if you can reduce your stress by getting into that creative space, you're actually going to use your other time more efficiently. So it might feel like, as you said, 1 hour might feel like I don't have that 1 hour, but if you give yourself that 1 hour, you're going to be using your time more efficiently. So you'll actually free up that hour.
Exactly right.
In your book, and I mean, you'd have to read the whole book, but you talk about how to create that relationship with your child to weather any storm. Can you give us a little bit of the science behind why it's so important to have that relationship with your child? Because it isn't just like, it's not just a nice thing to say that you want to have this relationship. Like, there's science that supports why that building the relationship is so important in your child's development. It's important for their brains.
It is. It's important for their brains, their body, their spirit, their social emotional development. Everything hinges on that connection. A child who feels connected and understood and appreciated, loved by one person. That's all it takes. The child who feels that connection with one person is way more likely to thrive in every domain. Cognitively, physically, emotionally, in terms of relationships. They're less likely to go to jail. They're more likely to make more money, to have career satisfaction. All the areas of sort of life success as a human being, both the social emotional side, like the kindness, respect area, health, all of those outcomes are way better for those who have a strong, loving connection with one adult. So if there's one person in a child's life who they feel understands and they feel connected to, they feel that bond, that child has a leg up on a happily productive life.
And when that child is feeling like they're seen and heard and understood, when they're feeling connected to that adult,
Yep.
you're impacting them on a cellular level. There's a release of oxytocin into the bloodstream, and that oxytocin is so important for that bonding, for trust. And oxytocin also blocks cortisol. So our kids with ADHD are often quite stressed and they have high levels of that cortisol. So by spending time connecting with your child and helping them feel understood, you're blocking the cortisol in their bloodstream, which is so beneficial.
Absolutely. You're right. There are many neurochemicals and other kinds of, as you say, cellular level changes that happen in that moment of bonding connection. It's really good for your kids.
So let's talk about how we can keep this bonding connection relationship in mind when our child is misbehaving and we feel there needs to be a consequence. So this comes up a lot in the group. Parents want to know, like, what's an appropriate consequence? How should I be consequencing? And I want you to think about, parents think about, like, what is the purpose of the consequence? Is it to punish? And just be aware of it for yourself. Like, think about it, journal about it, think about, why do you want to give the consequence? And just a thought that I came up with today is, if you want them to learn a lesson, is the consequence the way to do it? Or is that teaching them that misbehaviors need a punishment? And is that going to, create adults that want to be perfect to avoid these punishments? Just something to play with and think about. So think about, what is the purpose of the consequence, first of all. So maybe I can ask you, Dr. Donna, what should the purpose of a consequence be? Or should we even be consequencing at all?
Yeah. And I mean, you asked me that question about consequences, and my answer sort of avoids the question. I say, to begin with, try to catch your child being good. So keep your focus on the positive stuff. No child, remember this, no child, and I don't mean you, I mean everybody, including myself, no child wants to be bad. And that's hard to get your head around, because we are in a world where we think of children as being bad or good. And I think describing something as bad behavior or misbehavior is already getting into that sort of a problematic area. But if you can catch your child being wonderful, doing interesting things, surprising you, delighting you, keeping your focus on the positive stuff is going to change how your child sees themselves. And it's also going to change the behavior that you get from them. Another thing, and again, it's avoiding the question, what about consequences? But when you're with your child, be fully present, physically present. Do not be on your phone. Please turn off your phone. Give yourself specified times. Obviously leave the bell on if you're expecting a phone call or an important text, if there's some possibility that you're going to need to answer. You take care of that. But for the most part, when you're with your child, be with your child. Don't be a distracted parent, because in terms of misbehavior, the research on that is really solid. Kids misbehave way, way more when they've got a distracted parent. Parent with a cell phone, you are going to have a misbehavior. That's going to happen. Turn off your phone, be present to your child, enjoy them. Misbehavior is going to be a lot less frequent.
I love that. I took down a whole bunch of notes while you were speaking. And it reminds me of something that you said, reminds me of the quote by Stuart Shanker that I love: see a child differently, see a different child. So with
it's true.
Yes. Look
exactly
for those positives and really nurture those positive moments when they are doing the things that you want them to do. Really put your energy there. And like you said, the way you see them is the way they're going to see themselves. So if you want to be focusing on like their misbehaviors, and that's how they're going to be seeing themselves too. I really like the nurtured heart approach, where you really emphasize, the positives, praise them, and tell them what it means about them. Like, you picked up your toys without even being asked. That shows me that you're really responsible. You take care of your belongings. Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. Like really specific, meaningful feedback and letting them know what it means about them, about their character. That really helps them. And again, you need to be present and in the moment to be giving them that kind of feedback.
Yeah. That's right. And that sort of takes me to give them rewards, not consequences. So I love how you did that. You cleaned up your toys. I didn't even ask. Should we do something special this afternoon? Like just sort of, if the contingencies are for good stuff, you're going to see more good stuff.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm just looking through pick your battles is another important thing in my thinking about what kind of consequences. And again, this is me avoiding consequences entirely, which I think is a good thing. So address only those behaviors that you think are absolutely essential. So to the extent that it's possible, let stuff go. Yeah, everybody will be happier. Life goes better. I mean, that's part of the imperfect thing too.
And that makes me think of what we talked about at the beginning with the teenagers and the swearing. Maybe that's something that you can let go.
I think so. It's not going to change the world if they stop swearing or if they swear. That's not, nothing rises or falls on that. So my personal reaction is, surely you've got more important things to talk about with your child than that. And for sure, they have more important things to talk about with you.
I'm just trying to be mindful of the time, and I think we need to wrap it up in a couple minutes. So I'm going to be asking you for, in just a minute, one kind of closing remark, one final piece of advice that you'd like to give the audience and parents who are watching. I will be doing a draw just as soon as we're off the live, because I need to enter everybody's names in the into the app. But in order to win a copy of Dr. Donna Matthews' book, Imperfect Parenting, what I'd like for you to do is in the comments, write down your biggest aha, your biggest takeaway from our call today, or write down your next actionable step. So something that you learned today that you would like to try out for yourself. Everybody who comments on that will be entered in the draw, and I'll let you know who the winner is very shortly. If you're not a winner, I'll also share the link so that you can purchase your own copy of Imperfect Parenting. Okay, and our final closing remarks, Dr. Donna?
Okay. Most important thing as far as I'm concerned, and as far as the research shows, keep your focus on your connection with your child, not on their bad behavior. Learn to welcome bad behavior as a chance to figure out what's going on with the child. It's information. Bad behavior is information, and you should welcome it. I'm learning something about what this child needs or doesn't have or whatever. So keep focus on the connection, not the behavior, and look at the bad behavior as information, not as a need for consequences. Information.
I love that. So when you see that behavior, get curious rather than get
Yes,
furious and move towards a consequence. Get curious. It's information, it's communication. I
that's so
love it.
nicely put. Get curious, not furious. You
I
didn't
love
just
that
make that
saying.
up, did you? It's really good.
Okay, so everybody make sure you share your comments. What's your biggest aha moment, your biggest takeaway, your next step? If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And in the comments, you can even type I subscribed. And thank you, parents, for being here and spending this time with us. Dr. Donna, I love anytime I have the opportunity to interview you. I feel so grateful and thankful. And I just love your energy. You're so positive and calming and inspiring. So thank you so much for being here and sharing that inspiration and that calm with the ADHD Village.
Laura, thank you. It's totally mutual. I feel inspired and happy after I talk to you. It's always good. Thank you.
Thank you. Sending everyone lots of love, and I'll give you the results of the draw in just a few minutes, and that will be shared in the ADHD Village. Thank you, Dr. Donna. Thank you, parents.
Okay.